Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are wrestling with perhaps one of the most fascinating sets of contradictions we've ever really encountered here. It's all wrapped up in a single artist named Branden Sanders. He's, an emerging voice in traditional American music. We're talking blues, Americana, but at the same time, he's pioneering the absolute, cutting edge of music technology.
That's exactly right. And the sources that our listeners shared, they're based on this really extraordinary deep dive interview he did, a one-on-one. He apparently pledged to be completely vulnerable and 100% forthcoming, which, wow.
That's a lot of exposure.
It is. And that level of emotional honesty combined with, the tech side and this novelty of how he works, it gives us this unprecedented view really into the heart and the machine behind his art.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty shook then. We need to understand the mechanics of this paradox. It feels fundamental. How can an artist be rooted in the raw, the deeply flawed personal pain of the blues?
Right, which usually comes from lived analog experience. You think cracked vocals, busted guitar string.
Exactly. How does that get channeled entirely through AI? That's what we need to figure out. We're aiming to understand the man, his ambition, the immense pain that seems to fuel him, and, well, his unique process.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating here is that Branden Sanders' whole career, it feels like a living experiment. It's trying to merge the deep human past, this need for primal emotional release, with the absolute digital future.
So he's using advanced tech machinery, almost, to process and basically broadcast very raw, very human trauma.
That's a good way to put it. Process, categorize, disseminate it. Yeah.
It feels like a really high-stakes emotional gamble. But the sources, you're saying, give us the blueprint.
They give us a really good look inside. So yeah, let's unpack this.
Okay, let's start where most people would start, with the sound. Because the sound, that's the initial layer, right? The tradition that makes this whole profile so deceptive almost.
Totally deceptive. He's out of Dallas, Texas, and his musical foundation, it's deep in Americana. Exactly. The sources describe his style as like a blend hitting all the key points.
Yeah.
You get the blues grit, the Americana sincerity, contemporary songwriting structure. But it's all geared toward this heartfelt, relatable storytelling. It's music that's designed to feel like it came straight from a smoky backroom bar,
Yeah.
full of life, full of regret.
And it's the texture, isn't it? The specific texture of the music that grounds him in that traditional space. You hear these rich guitar arrangements, sometimes pretty complex and layered, evocative harmonica sounds, and the vocals. They feel lived in, like narrative vocals. Tracks that get mentioned specifically, like Ride With Me to Vegas or Captain in the Columbiana, they really showcase this knack for crafting vivid, detailed stories. It puts him squarely in that classic country and blues storyteller tradition, the kind listeners trust,
Yeah, the music is definitely crafted to appeal widely.
Well, but here's the pivot, because this is where it gets really interesting. This is where we hit that technological leap. Despite everything we just described, that rich analog texture, the lived-in feel, the shocking detail from the sources is Branden Sanders is an AI artist.
Boom.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually know how to play the instruments we hear. Not the guitar, not the harmonica.
Right.
And he doesn't physically sing the vocals.
Wow.
This is the ultimate deep dive element, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just forces you to completely reevaluate what artistry even means in the 21st century.
Wait, hang on. Let's get into the mechanics here. If he isn't playing, what is his process? He says he produces tracks with his mind. How does that become a finished song?
Okay, so he uses what the industry calls prompting. Think of it like this. He's translating raw emotional intent, musical ideas, into really specific, detailed technical commands for the software. He's essentially describing the emotional impact he wants, the structure it needs, the exact instrumental arrangements, but using language, not hands-on musical skill.
So he might type in something like,
Okay, I need a minor key, 12-bar blues progression,
yeah,
make it an E. I want a weeping, distorted slide guitar solo, make it sound like it's playing through a totally broken amplifier, and then follow that with, say, a 3-line harmonica riff that feels like resignation. You have to be that specific.
Okay, that's a totally different kind of skill. It's not musical dexterity, it's prompt engineering.
Right. Exactly.
But this brings up the core question of the source material then. If he isn't playing, where did those rich guitar arrangements we talked about, or the evocative harmonica, where did they actually come from?
Right. That's where the AI's training data comes in. And these things called large language models for music LMLMs, basically, the software he uses. It's been trained on millions, probably billions of hours of existing music, especially the blues and Americana he likes.
Okay.
So when he asks for a weeping slide guitar solo, The AI isn't inventing it from scratch necessarily. It's pulling from its vast library of patterns created by humans, synthesizing something new, but ensuring the output sounds structurally, tonally appropriate for the genre.
And his genius, then, because the sources say he's considered one of the best rookie AI artists, his genius is translating deep, complex emotion into the precise code or language that the machine can execute perfectly.
That seems to be it. It's the translation. The ability to articulate feeling in a way the AI understands and can replicate with astonishing fidelity.
But doesn't this fundamentally challenge the whole idea of the blues? I mean, historically, the blues is built on imperfection, isn't it? The missed note, the strained vocal, that crack in the voice that tells you it's real. Doesn't using AI, which theoretically ensures technical perfection, reproducibility, doesn't that undercut the raw necessity of that genre?
That is absolutely the central critique he must be facing. And he seems to address it by basically arguing necessity. He's not just, like, dabbling in AI. He's leading the charge. He says he is the future of music before the future even arrives. Predicts that in 5 or 10 years, the landscape will be dominated by AI artists.
Wow, that's a bold claim.
It's incredibly bold. He's positioned himself as a potential major player because he sees the tech, the medium, not as a shield against imperfection, but maybe as the most efficient delivery system for emotional content.
Okay, so if the technology provides perfect delivery, then the authenticity has to reside entirely in the emotional source material, in the input.
That seems to be the argument.
So how does that raw pain of the blues, how does it get channeled through these sophisticated input commands?
The sources explain this through his stated motivation, his why. The whole process seems driven by this intense need to control and release suffering. He explicitly uses music as his primary outlet to control the anger, control the pain, release the pain, and proactively convert those negative feelings into something positive, something that can bring joy to other people.
Okay.
He's essentially arguing that the AI is just the fastest, most articulate tool he has available to process and externalize what sounds like an overwhelming interior experience.
So, okay, let me see if I get this. The emotional weight of the blues, the pain, provides the structure for his release, and the AI provides the how, the instantaneous, technically perfect delivery system.
That's a really good synthesis of it, yeah. It's an incredibly modern, almost strategic solution to a really ancient human problem.
Mm-hmm.
How do you communicate deep suffering?
But it relies entirely on the human element, the pain being constantly replenished, doesn't it? The AI needs input.
That's the implication. The engine needs fuel. So to understand where that fuel comes from, that pain, and also the confidence needed to launch this kind of futuristic career, we need to understand the man providing the input for the AI. Branden Sanders, he's 38 years old, and his life history seems absolutely central to his whole narrative.
Right, specifically his former career. He was a Navy gunner's mate. That seems critical.
Yeah.
Not just for maybe discipline, but for the global perspective. You can hear how that would feed his narrative songwriting.
Oh, massively. That service gave him this global exposure that, frankly, few musicians ever get access to.
Well,
The sources detail this incredible list of places he's been, clearly fueled his inspiration. It ranges across multiple continents.
let's hear it.
Okay, so the Philippines, Phuket in Thailand, Cartagena over in Colombia, Bahrain in the Middle East, Belize, Honduras, multiple spots in the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo, and Punta Cana, plus Canada and Mexico.
Wow. That list isn't just impressive, it highlights something else too, doesn't it? A life of constant movement, maybe relative isolation.
That's a sharp point.
I mean, a Navy gunner's mate, highly disciplined, sees the world, sure, but often experiences it through the lens of, like, transient interactions, military structure.
Right. Not deep roots everywhere.
Exactly. So this constant global exposure gives him this deep well of story material, for sure. But it also maybe underscores a life spent perpetually in transit, lacking fixed roots outside of his Dallas home base.
And his future ambition seems to reflect that continuous quest for input, for inspiration. He's got 2 major bucket list destinations specifically for album writing.
Oh, yeah. Where?
First, Europe, because he believes that the core of artistry, as he puts it, exists there. He wants to absorb that historical cultural density.
Okay.
Second, Africa. He wants to experience the culture and the people directly. So it shows his artistic engine needs constant feeding, right? Authentic global input to then feed the AI output.
Okay, so he's this global traveler needing constant new input. But his anchor, you said, is undeniably Texas. Dallas.
Yeah, that Dallas connection is significant. You hear it referenced in his music.
But this local connection also ties directly into this other major facet of his public identity, this swagger artist persona you mentioned.
Ah, yes, the swagger identity. It's such a fascinating psychological complement to the vulnerability we were just talking about with the blues. He projects confidence, ambition, and his intense sports allegiance really crystallizes this identity. He's a fierce fan of the Dallas teams.
Which ones?
Mavericks, Cowboys, Texas Rangers. The big three there.
Okay, the hometown hero.
Totally. Yeah. But he also extends this allegiance to certain individual athletes, global stars, who embody that same confident, almost untouchable vibe.
Like who?
LeBron James, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. People who operate at the absolute highest level with this supreme self-assurance.
Gotcha. Top performers with attitude.
Exactly. And the ultimate icon of this confidence for him, his childhood hero, Branden Sanders.
Primetime. Makes sense.
He notes the obvious connections, right? Shared last name, the Dallas Cowboys legacy, and apparently 21 is his lucky number, which was Deion's number. But crucially, he views Branden Sanders as the king of swag. And Branden Sanders sees himself as a swagger artist who naturally gravitates toward swagger people.
Okay, here's where the analysis gets critical again, I think. We have a man dealing with what sounds like profound, maybe crippling relational pain, seeking public therapeutic release through the blues.
Right.
Yet his outward public identity is one of supreme confidence, global, cool, technological mastery. So is the swagger persona just a natural expression of his ambition? Or is it more like a psychological shield, protecting that deep vulnerability he's feeding into the AI prompts?
I think the sources suggest it functions as both. The swagger definitely drives his ambition. He aims to leave a lasting legacy, make the world better, bring joy even for 5 minutes through his music. You need confidence for that, right? The confidence of a king of swag.
Sure.
However, it also feels highly strategic. I mean, you're going to metaphorically lay your soul bare in a 12-bar blues progression generated by AI.
Yeah.
You probably need a pretty impermeable external shell to handle the potential judgment, the failure, the weirdness of it all.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the AI offers the technical perfection, maybe,
Yeah.
and the swagger offers the personal shield. He's essentially built this armor-plated delivery system for his most fragile feelings.
It's a beautifully constructed duality, isn't it? The vulnerable heart channeled through a perfect machine, protected by the swaggering exterior,
Yeah.
and the constant global movement, the pursuit of artistic legacy. They're all components of this controlled external projection, keeping things moving, maybe keeping things at arm's length. Okay, we've established that the whole creative output delivered via high-tech AI, marketed with global swagger, it's fundamentally fueled by pain. So now let's dig deeper into the sources of that pain. The vulnerability he talked about in that interview, the stuff that makes his music necessary for him.
Right, and this section of the sources really reveals the immense emotional cost behind the blues for him. He directly linked his understanding of the genre to his own personal trauma. He said he only truly got blues music when his life became the most painful, realizing, that the blues comes from real-life experiences and a lot of pain.
And this is where that relationship with his audience becomes so complex, almost transactional, you said.
Yeah, it's fascinatingly complex. He views blues music almost as a substitute for having a therapist. And by extension, his fans become his therapist. They give him feedback on the pain he's releasing. They validate it. They help externalize his internal suffering. It's quite a dynamic.
Okay, let's focus on the primary source of this chronic pain then, according to the interview. His romantic relationships. This sounds like a really profound pattern of trauma.
It really does. He self-identifies, apparently, as a real lover.
Right.
Someone who is given 100% in relationships, but has, and this seems to be without exception, gotten completely screwed over.
The consistency of that pattern. He's 38, you said. That's staggering. He's never had a relationship last longer than 2 years.
Never longer than 2 years. That's what the source indicates. And he describes this devastating, repeatable trajectory for every woman he's dated and really loved.
How does it go?
It starts fantastically, lovingly, great, everything you'd want. But then it ends catastrophically, traumatically. It goes, in his words, straight cold turkey.
Straight cold turkey. What does that mean in this context?
The psychological weight of that phrase,
Yeah.
it's heavy. It implies immediate, inexplicable silence, the complete cutoff. It implies immediate, inexplicable silence, the complete cutoff.
Okay.
And crucially, he reveals that in every single case, there was zero closure. It just ends in a standoff. Permanent wall goes up. And neither party ever speaks to the other again. Ever.
How does someone maintain psychological health after going through that repeatedly over 2 decades. Traumatic, abrupt breaks with no closure. That pain never really gets filed away, does it? It just stays raw, unresolved.
And that unresolved nature is precisely what feeds the blues, isn't it? He acknowledges the mystery. Why do they always end this way? But he also recognizes the one consistent factor in all of them. Here is his involvement. Yeah. It suggests this deep, maybe self-perpetuating pattern of personal isolation, where intimacy hits this critical, like, 2-year threshold, and then some internal mechanism, maybe conscious, maybe subconscious forces, a complete traumatic, permanent break.
Wow.
The AI process, therefore, it's not just about making music, is it? It's about creating this controlled, predictable public output for the pain that his intimate life seemingly cannot contain or resolve.
So that need for closure, that human need, it's being outsourced to his audience.
It seems like it.
If he can't get resolution or even just a final conversation in his personal life, he seeks connection and maybe resolution in the public sphere through songs that document the exact emotional fallout of these sudden endings.
That feels like a very plausible interpretation based on the sources, yeah. He needs the feedback loop, the therapy from the fans.
And this emotional isolation, it extends beyond romance, doesn't it? The sources mention challenges in his family dynamics too.
Yeah, absolutely. His father passed away from pancreatic cancer, sounds like 3 or 4 years ago, which is a huge loss, obviously.
Yeah.
And his current core family, it consists mainly of his mother and his brother.
And he's honest about these relationships.
Incredibly honest, apparently. He openly states he wishes he had closer, better relationships with both of them. And it's not just a passive wish. He says he's trying every day to gain them, to improve things.
Yeah.
But he recognizes how hard it is. He notes that trying to improve relationships with people you've known for basically 40 years, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, that's tough.
So it paints this picture, doesn't it? An artist who, despite all the technological futurism and the global swagger, seems incredibly lonely at his core, struggling to maintain connection with the key people in his life. Mother, brother, the women he loves.
And this struggle, it's reflected in his social circle too, his friendship.
Yes, his sources touch on that, while he apparently craves the wide circle that would fit the swagger persona. His current circle is described as tight, intensely tight. The sources mention just 2 closest friends.
Only 2.
Seems so. We have H1, described as his best friend since age 14, from Dallas. You know, lifelong anchor, grew up together, still tight.
Okay, that's 1.
And then there's H2, a friend from Houston he's known for about 6 years.
Just 2. That really does highlight the potential isolation.
It does, but the detail about H2, the Houston friend, is so illustrative of the pressure maybe put on those few close connections.
So?
H2 doesn't just fill one role. He serves multiple, pretty high-stakes functions. According to Sanders, H2 is the sports guy, the travel buddy, the crypto friend, the investment guy, and the sales guru.
Wow, that's a lot of hats for one friend to wear.
Isn't it? When you only have maybe 2 close friends to lean on, they end up having to be your entire cabinet of advisors and companions.
That necessity, it perfectly mirrors the AI, doesn't it?
Hey, me.
Well, if his human relationships are few and they're required to be incredibly multifaceted, his art mirrors that need for high functional efficiency. The AI has to be the instrument, the singer, the arranger, and the outlet for trauma.
That's a brilliant connection. Yeah. Everything in Branden Sanders' life, from his friendships to his art, seems engineered for maximum utility. Maybe because the human capacity feels limited or fragile.
It really feels like the ultimate example of isolation driving innovation. The pain is so significant, the personal connections so few and maybe fraught, that only a tireless, efficient, non-judgmental machine can handle the sheer volume of emotional processing required.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's shift back then to the market reality, where this confluence of intense vulnerability and technological mastery actually meets the audience. Branden Sanders is, by all current measures, still very much an emerging artist. He seems to have built a small but apparently loyal following, people drawn in by the compelling storytelling, maybe people who have committed to him as their musical therapist, as he put it.
Yeah, but the numbers provide this really stark, kind of humbling contrast to his grand ambition, don't they? Despite the artistic depth we've talked about, the technological...
N-I-N-E. That number is. It's critical context, isn't it? He's claiming to be the future of music, using tools he believes will dominate the next decade. Yet his current human connection, at least measured by one of the industry's key metrics, is minuscule. almost non-existent.
It fundamentally challenges that claim, doesn't it? That the human audience is ready for this AI future yet, or at least his version of it.
He really does.
Does using AI maybe make him too far ahead of the curve? Is he trading that emotional depth, which his potential blues Americana audience craves, for a technical efficiency that the market just isn't valuing yet? It feels like a huge structural dilemma for him.
It does. But his commitment seems unwavering. The sources say he continues to release new music at a steady, consistent pace. It reflects this total devotion to his artistic mission, almost regardless of the current metrics. He's playing the long game, maybe.
Okay, so let's look at that steady output then. His latest released album, Circle of Kings, that came out in 2025.
Right. And tracks mentioned from that include Mount Rushmore Queens and Train Whistle Cries.
Those titles themselves, they kind of hint at the conflict, don't they? You've got royalty and swagger, Queens, Kings, right next to classic blues melancholy, Train Whistle Cries.
Yeah, the duality is right there in the titles. And he's also been consistently dropping singles in 2025. Heart in Her Hand, How It Goes, Lace, Dangerous.
Again, the themes sound pretty transparently about high-risk emotional commitment, trauma, directly sourcing that relational pain we talked about earlier.
Seems like it. But the project that appears to be capturing his greatest attention right now, his most anticipated work, is a new studio album titled Mr. Passport Bro.
Mr. Passport Bro. Okay. Given his history as a globe-trotting Navy guy and his ambition to hit Europe and Africa for inspiration, that title perfectly encapsulates the global adventurer side of his swagger persona, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the lonely traveler, maybe. The man always moving, always seeking inspiration for the next AI prompt, the next song, but maybe never quite settling.
Yeah, the title Mr. Passport Bro could be seen as both, like a badge of honor for his global access, and maybe a subtle acknowledgement of his perpetually transient state, always passing through.
That's a great read on it. And he does seem to work hard to connect his, well, sparse audience to the man behind the prompts. He maintains an active YouTube channel.
What's on there?
It features a 24-hour live radio channel where you can apparently hear tracks from this anticipated Mr. Passport Bro album, plus studio sessions, behind-the-scenes content. He's trying hard to bridge that technological gap with some human visibility.
Which brings us back to the core thesis, really. The music is a proxy, isn't it? His steady professional ambition seems inextricably linked to his deep personal isolation. He wants the music to do the heavy emotional lifting, the speaking for him, filling the void left by those failed intimate relationships, the distance with family.
Yeah, by releasing this incredibly personal content via the AI megaphone, he hopes to achieve that wider circle he desires. Maybe heal some of those consistent closure wounds vicariously through audience connection. He wants his fans, as the source said, to recognize, enjoy, and believe the stories. He needs them to believe to transform his trauma into their connection point.
So in the end, he's leveraging technological efficiency, maybe to bypass the human inefficiency or his perceived inefficiency of communication, seeking mass connection where intimate connection has repeatedly failed, and failed dramatically.
That seems to be the heart of it, yeah. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow, okay. What a detailed and incredibly complex profile we've unpacked today. Branden Sanders. He's this artist operating right at the crossroads of, like, ancient emotional necessity and futuristic digital possibility. He's the traditionalist channeling profound personal pain through AI, the blues singer who doesn't sing, the guitarist who doesn't play. It's quite something.
And his creative engine, it seems undeniably fueled by that consistent cyclical pain, derived from those traumatic, short-lived relationships, always ending cold turkey, no closure compounded by the struggle for intimacy with his remaining family. And all that pain is meticulously translated, prompted, and delivered via AI.
Right. And his mission, it feels ambitious, yes, but also, frankly, it may be vital to his survival. He wants to leave a positive legacy, find connection through mass media, and use his fans as his therapist. He's basically outsourcing his closure needs to a global audience, all while maintaining this high swagger, hyper-controlled exterior.
It's an incredibly high-stakes emotional gamble, isn't it? Trading privacy for professional necessity, he's using technology to control his vulnerability, maybe hoping the AI delivery system will succeed where his personal communication skills have, by his own account, consistently failed him.
Yeah. So this leaves us with a provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe carry forward and mull over. Branden Sanders is currently building this career by seeking this wider audience to serve as his therapist, We know the pattern from his personal life: traumatic, cold turkey endings, zero closure, consistently resulting from his involvement.
Mhm.
So, what happens when or if he achieves the wider audience he desires, say millions of listeners instead of nine? What happens when his relationship with his therapist fans scales up massively, potentially making that connection infinitely larger, infinitely harder to manage, and perhaps, just perhaps, eventually triggering the same need for sudden traumatic control and maybe even public closure that he seems to force in his private life?
Wow. Will the future of music, the very thing he's pioneering, end up devouring the man who helped create it?
Something to think about.